Welcome back everybody, and this is part 2 of our mini-series featuring the main player characters in the Assassin's Creed board game where we paint and rank them from the best to the worst assassin.
Here comes a new challenger!
And today's assassin will be Bastiano, so let's jump right in. Bastiano's sculpt is reasonably clean and I didn't really have to do too much work on him. But I must say that his pose is not very exciting, and truth be told, aside from his fancy mask, his sculpt is quite ordinary and indeed not all that different from the assassin apprentices. After priming him in black, we'll be using the airbrush to apply a zenithal highlight, so I mount him on this makeshift model holder which I made using blue tack and an old paint bottle, and start applying the zenithal highlight starting from Sombre grey and gradually mixing in Rakarth flesh and working my way all the way up to off-white. Similar to Claudio, the predominant colour on the model is white, so we're going to start by working on that first. So again, we're going to slowly fill in the recessed areas with a little bit of a wash with Sombre grey mixed with Rakarth flesh, accentuating the shadows in the model. Bastiano's sculpt, however, has less creases than Claudio's outfit, which means there are more flat areas, so this time I'll have to pay a little more attention to making smooth blends. After shading, it's time to start working on building up the layers of white, and after Claudio, I have a better idea of how bright the white needs to be. Bastiano's backstory is that he was basically a bored noble who became the Phantom of the Opera. He burned his face in a fire when he was trying to help out the other actors in the theatre. The actors were so grateful that they trained him in the art of disguise, and that's why he carries these masks with him all the time. Because you know, a mask is the most powerful disguise there is.
Antonio, we need to talk.
Ezio!
On the table, his skills revolve around stealth and avoiding detection, which can present several technical opportunities. After a few layers of paint gradually bringing the white up, I apply the last layers of pure off-white, and you can really start to see some of the contrast, and I'm quite pleased with how the white is turning out here. We'll leave the white there for now, and I'll start painting the inner details starting with his pants, which I paint simply in black. Next, I'll paint the red trim, which is going to be painted in the same way as Claudio, using a base of chaotic red, which I actually mixed with a little bit of Wyldood to improve the flow of the paint. Bastiano also has something like a gorget, which I paint simply in black. I next paint his leather boots, as well as his gloves and belt pouch using Wyldood. For his face, he seems to have regular Caucasian skin, so for this I start with a base coat of Tuskgor fur. While that's drying, I give the mask a light shade using Incubi darkness to give it a subtle dark green tone. I then start highlighting the face with a little bit of Cadian skin tone and later add on a little off-white for the final highlight. Lastly, to draw attention to the mask, I use flat lining to highlight it using off-white. Bastiano is also carrying a little pouch on his back, which I suppose is where he keeps his disguises. I picked that out with a little bit of Steel Legion Drab. Again, with most of the colours filled in, I can do a white vibrancy check and touch up the white areas with some more off-white. I then highlight the red trim with Mephiston red, and here is where I make a mistake on the sleeve, which makes me so mad, but when this happens, you can quickly use some clean water to try and wash off the still wet paint and minimize the cleanup that you have to do later. To finish off the red trim, I use some Mephiston red mixed with a bit of Ushabti bone to finish off the red highlights. Next up, we are painting the NMM, and for Bastiano, he has the dagger, some belt buckles, throwing knives, as well as smoke bombs on his belt, so we start with a base coat of black. We're now going to paint the two masks on his back, and as this is Bastiano's special item, I really wanted it to stand out, so I plan to paint it using gold NMM and start by applying Wyldood as the base color. Little did I know, this was going to be the start of something horrible. While the contrast is drying, I start working on the metal NMM, gradually applying layers of lighter and lighter colors by mixing in more off-white into the Sombre grey, eventually finishing with a highlight of pure off-white. I then go back to the mask and I apply the next layer of Steel Legion Drab to build up the tones of gold. I then start adding in bronze Fleshtone to try and build up the color, and yeah, that's no good.
That is absolute dog shit.
Not quite sure what happened there, but to calm myself down, I start base coating the base with Ushabti bone while I consider how to fix the masks. I decided to try and save it by doing what I did with Claudio's sword and shade it with a little bit of Wyldood, but I have a brain fart and painted over the whole mask instead. Good lord, this is a mess. Frustrated, I decided to just go with some wet blending using bronze Fleshtone and then later mixing in a bit of white to at least hint at some layers. Man, if Bastiano wears this mask, no one is gonna find him because he's just too frightening to look at. I then move on to finish the leather areas with some stippling followed by an Agrax Earthshade wash, and I also give the mask an Agrax Earthshade wash in a last ditch effort to try and tie all the colours in together. And I quickly finish up the base with the green and soft tone mix followed with a quick dry brush and some black lining, and I'm calling Bastiano done. Not gonna lie, Bastiano never really stood out to me, but considering his skills, maybe that was the point. But while working on him, I did appreciate all the little bits of equipment that were sculpted on the model, and I thought it was really cool to see all these in-game items represented on the model. In terms of skills, I must say, he does not have the most exciting of skills, which also do not seem particularly useful, especially if you strategize well and avoid detection altogether. But on the one occasion that I did use him, some of his abilities were actually very helpful in securing a victory for the memory, and I can see how he can be a very tactical piece. Overall, I'm still going to put him behind Claudio, and we'll see if he can keep holding on to that position as we move on to the female assassins. If you think I was too harsh on Bastiano, just go check out my other video on Claudio here, and I'm sure you'll agree with me.